All right. Bungie's big news article is out, the weekly TWID, or as it used to be known, the TWAB. And this week, Bungie is actually giving us a hint at the Thorn Catalyst, which has come out. Not just a hint, they're straight up telling us next season is the Thorn Catalyst, which is something that they had hinted at previously, but now it's finally happening and definitely pretty exciting. Let me know if you're going to be looking forward to the Thorn Catalyst. Let's go ahead and jump into everything that they're covering in this week's TWID. They give us a brief overview of the topics right here, which is Jump Master Campaign has landed. We have Crafting Shenanigans, what happened, Deterministic Recoil, what it is and why it is so heckin' cool, and then we have more secrets to Savathûn Spire await, and then we have we heard you wanted a Thorn Catalyst, a Pale Heart awaits, and then we have the team has a little too much fun with the new supers coming out in the final shape, which we've already previously covered. Then we have a little bit of lo-fi, makes everything better now with Eris and Prime Gaming Update, and Yeet the Small and Fun clip. So we have 4 veterans by veterans. On Tuesday, the Bungie Foundation launched a veteran-focused campaign in partnership with Team Rubicon to showcase support for those who serve and help provide humanitarian aid in communities to the facing crisis. And so that's actually a really cool thing that they're supporting there. Definitely a big fan of that. Love seeing the support go to veterans and having it be veteran ran as well. Definitely awesome. Moving on to the next part, we have the crafting. If you want that emblem right there, we're actually doing a giveaway for it on Twitter. Crafting, a larger problem than anticipated. Am it right? We've got, hey Guardians, this week has been a week. Am I right? As some members of the community have dubbed it, the crafting, the issue that allowed exotic and legendary via weapon crafting to be Frankensteined into something ungodly and powerful was certainly a doozy. While fun for a while, our priority will always be to ensure the long-term health of the game. Our teams worked hard to not only get the appropriate fixes in place, but also to communicate with each of you. Time strides towards a fix were made. We saw a lot of players ask, why not just do this? Why not just do that? And we thought this might be a good opportunity to show why issues like this aren't always as simple as they seem. So obviously they want to give us a little bit of dev insight, give us a peek behind the curtain as to why this issue was as big as it was and why it's very difficult to fix, I imagine. To continue the transparency, we've got folks from various departments that worked on the issue here to give a little peek behind the curtain. Let's dive right in. A previous bug allowed the stale data from other crafting recipes to bleed over, which allowed crafty players to move traits from one recipe to another. We learned this problem on Friday and worked over the weekend on both a short-term content fix and a long-term code fix. At Bungie, we say that teams are stronger than heroes, and that was exemplified in this weekend's work. Engineering, design, testing, leadership were all involved every step of the way. For our short-term fix, we have a live update process, which we can use to modify content in the live game. However, content and code are 2 different things, and the bug itself was in the code. While we worked on both solutions in parallel, we prioritized possible content-only solutions that would fix enough of the issues to give us more time to work on the code solution. Other than only supporting content changes, also have their limits. We have LUPs have limits on the amount of content that can be changed. However, we do not have a method of predicting the size of each element of the content fix. This has required us to build a live update which contained the changes and then see if it was above or below the size limit. Got it? Only allow us to modify existing content. They do not allow us to add new content objects as part of the fix. Only support changes. Got it. And only a single LUP can be active at once. And we have to include all new and previous LUP changes as a whole. Due to limitation number 1, we knew we needed to constrain the size of it. However, the scope of the problem was vast. All crafted perks were potential problems, as well as every crafted weapon. That was definitely the case. The intrinsic traits, the perks, the frames being swapped over, like certain weapons having frames from other weapons was so strange. We obviously could not disable every weapon in the game, so we decided 2 options: disable crafted or enhanced weapons, disable perks from being active on crafted or enhanced weapons. The first step was creating gating logic that would only apply perks on crafted and enhanced weapons and could easily toggle on and off in case something went awry, since we can only edit existing content and not add new content objects, and we needed to support both crafted and enhanced weapons. This logic took a while to create and test. After a number of false starts, we landed on a working set of logic that incorporated both options and began to evaluate them in a test environment, pushing them into the live game. We started testing the first option that disabled equipped weapons but ran quickly into issues. Weapons that were equipped appeared to be disabled in the UI. Some behaviors weapons were active. We didn't have the test whether leaving the behaviors active was safe or not. This is an unequipped functionality that exists for items, which we then attempted to use. Got it. With disabling equipping weapons not being viable path, we began investigating the second option, disabling the perks themselves. Got it. So they're going to go through all the details of this. While this is relatively interesting, I feel like they're kind of it's a bit exhaustive. At this point, we had to start from scratch. To avoid UI failure, we want to simply not modify existing visibility settings of the perks. Among other issues with this approach, the main problem was that while we had examples of bad combinations of perks, we didn't know all of them and we didn't have the time to gather the information. Got it. The limited perk disabling LUP went fairly quickly. We already had the gating logic and we're editing a smaller scope of content. This LUP was successful and we prepared to deploy this fixed live game on Sunday. Although it was an option to kick players from the game when we applied the LUP fix, we chose not to. While the LUP deployment succeeded without major issues, we found that weapons players already had equipped still had their perks active in certain scenarios. We did not experience that in the internal testing. We then did a rolling restart to get players out of the state and considered the LUP was effective enough to let us concentrate on continuing to help the team who was working with the code to fix. Got it. Stop the exploit. The new weapons can't enter the system. As we investigated the issue, team members would join a work chat and provide us with reliable reproduction steps and more insights on the scope of the issue. As some focused on the fix, others started to develop our test plan and test cases for validation and developing backup plans. Our initial fix was written. All right, so here we go. There's a fix deploying this week that will target crafting issue. As always, please report any issues you're experiencing. The rollout, Bungie helps. So I think the issue is fixed overall because all of the weapons have their proper intrinsic traits, but definitely an interesting, peek behind the curtains to see, why X doesn't work with Y and Y doesn't work with X. I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff, moving parts going on behind the scenes. I think we're all pretty well aware of that. Creating this game is not easy. Like, it's literally hundreds of employees working at a corporation to make this game function as it does. So cool for them to give us a little bit of transparency, though. Then we have deterministic recoil. This is really cool. This is where your weapons, instead of firing at a randomized recoil, will have a set pattern that they like kick up into the left, or kick just straight to the right, or kick down, or maybe any different direction, right? That's what deterministic recoil is going to be. So get ready for this. We've got senior designer lead Chris Proctor here with an update on deterministic recoil and why players should definitely learn more about this change. Bungie, why wasn't this included in the Season of the Witch weapons preview article a few weeks back? That's a good question. We wanted to observe the system in the wild for a little bit and didn't want this information to get buried in the patch notes on a larger weapon balance update, like with the early weapons preview article. The full context is important to understanding the purpose and PvP implications of the partial predictability of weapon recoil with this particular system active. Let's dive into it. Take it away, Proctor. Starting in Season 22, the following weapons, and with the Season 22 or later watermark, we'll have what we're calling deterministic recoil set up for them. Auto rifle, pulse rifle, scout rifle, submachine gun, sidearm, hand cannon, trace rifle, and machine gun. This includes all full auto weapons as well as burst fire and semi-automatic primary ammo weapons. These weapons recoil in a predictable way with sustained fire, allowing players to learn patterns and compensate for them. You may have seen similar systems in other games, but our implementation is quite different because we release so many weapons a season and drive their gameplay via stats, important in this case recoil direction and stability. The goal of the system is to make each weapon feel unique with a recoil pattern that can be learned to a degree. This will enable players to truly master weapons in a way that wasn't possible with standard Destiny 2 recoil, which has a fair amount of randomness in it. Note that the pattern of the updated recoil is very similar each time, but not exactly the same. So this is actually really cool to learn the recoil pattern of certain weapons and then be able to adjust with that, so that way you can consistently hit your headshots in PvP or whatever it may be, even in PvE. Here's how it works. A weapon is set up with a few possible recoil patterns. The weapon will always start with the first pattern. Most of the time it will run through this recoil pattern until you stop firing for long enough for let the weapon recoil and accuracy reset completely. Occasionally, somewhere in the first half of the magazine, it will switch over to another pattern. Each bullet fired has a small amount of randomness to it due to the accuracy cone, placing the bullet somewhere in the radius around the target point. The entire pattern shifts left and right dependent on the weapon's recoil, with higher recoil direction having smaller horizontal spacing. But even as the recoil direction of stat changes, the pattern will still be recognizable. Interesting. See what this looks like on the Crota auto rifle. Yeah, so it's going up and to the right and to the left. Interesting. Very interesting. And so it's going to do it again. It's going to go up and to the right and a little bit to the left. Very cool. This video shows an Abyss Defiant high impact auto rifle with 86 recoil, 25 stability, firing with no compensation for recoil. You can see that while there is some randomness to the location of each specific bullet impact, the pattern is generally the same. Got it. Before, it would previously be very random. It could go left, right, do a lot of crazy stuff. Why don't fusion rifle, shotguns, and sniper rifles get this treatment? Fusion rifle recoil isn't a big factor in the randomness of their apparent recoil patterns. There's much more dependent on accuracy cone growth. What we found when we set up the fusion rifles is that you can't tell there's any predictability to the recoil because accuracy places the bullets so randomly. Shotguns get fixed pellet spread instead. Technically, deterministic recoil would function on shotguns, but you wouldn't be able to feel it in most cases. Making sniper rifle recoil predictable isn't something we're comfortable with doing at this point in time. It would likely make a follow-up shots too easy, and accuracy cone growth doesn't have a large enough impact on sniper rifles to feel safe. Does the recoil pattern only reset on a full magazine? No, it resets when you stop firing for long enough for the weapon to fully settle. Typically when you reload, the weapon is idle for long enough for this to happen though. What happens if you keep refilling my magazine while continuously firing? The implementation we've used has no upper limit to the length of the recoil pattern. For example, firing an auto rifle with Actium War Rig or another magazine refill method wouldn't cause any weirdness. Interesting. That's because like you go up and to the right, and then what happens if you keep firing infinitely with like Actium War Rig? It's an interesting question. Are there any security implications to this feature? It was very important that the feature not be exploitable. Weapon Design worked with game security on this implementation to ensure that we achieved the goal of allowing greater player mastery of weapons without allowing recoil to be predictable enough to be exploitable. We settled on 3 prioritizations. This is actually a really big thing because I think that this is going to be gamed by the Zim users, by the Cronus Zen, those people that are, they can create predictable patterns of how to pull your joystick down on console, and they can do it on PC too. And so basically it'll make it a laser gun, and with predictable recoil it'll make it even more of a laser gun. So this actually could be a big problem. Hopefully they actually address this. A predictable recoil pattern, but standard randomization and accuracy and cone and error angle. While the pattern is predictable, each bullet will land in a slightly different position each time, a low chance to branch to a different pattern in the first half of the magazine. Any attempt to use automation to compensate for the specific pattern will randomly fail. Interesting. So maybe they actually have upped it. They said it will randomly fail. So maybe Cronus Zen, this will actually hurt Cronus Zen. We'll see. I have a feeling it's probably going to help it though, unfortunately, as much as I don't want that to be a thing. A server-side flag to disable the feature so that if we encounter issues, we can revert standard immediately behavior while we work on a fix. We're expecting more questions, so feel free to reach out to Destiny 2 team. Hope this gives you some insight on why the Season 22 weapons feel a bit different. We'll be monitoring the recoil in the live game as well as feedback around the system and are ready to make adjustments if needed. Curiosity may kill the cat, but what about the Guardian? You've been exploring the Spire so much that you've discovered in its deepest secrets the mystical arcane chambers where Savathun turned her trickery into power. Are free to explore, but try not to become a victim of your own curiosity. Pay extra attention as you make your way through the Season of the Witch starting this week, Guardians. Some surprises are still waiting to be covered, and not all are easy to spot. Interesting. I think they're just talking about the new seasonal story mission where it had those funny chests. I don't think there was anything secretive in there other than just beating it, right? Hopefully we didn't miss anything. What's a controversial Halloween candy in Destiny 2? Candy thorn. Candy corn is the worst. Look, you can admit it. Don't be shy. It's okay to say it out loud. You enjoy the ever-loving Traveler out of going full stabby with the recently added Monte Carlo Catalyst. We get it. We're not here to judge. In the same vein, have you considered Thorn for your loadout lately? Thorn is arguably one of the most iconic exotic hand cannons in Destiny, so it only makes sense that this bad boy is the next weapon up for some Catalyst action in Season 23. And before you ask, no, you can't stab people with it. So no glaive added onto the Thorn Catalyst. Hopefully it will be as interesting as the Monte Carlo Catalyst, though, where they actually added a glaive to it. So I wonder what they could add to the Thorn. Obviously it does need range, but I feel like just adding plain range to it is boring. Hopefully it does something a little more iconic. I think dual wield Thorn is the only way. Bless your Pale Heart. If you've been digging into the lead up to the final shape, you've likely seen the trailer. We've been highlighting the Pale Heart. We covered that one. The Pale Heart is the primary destination of the final shape. There's a juxtaposition of danger. Got it. But if we consider the feeling like total badass. Earlier this year, we shared the 3 supers. Yes, and we did an entire video talking about these 3 supers. So make sure to go watch that. That one was good. And then we have lo-fi music to watch while you're tithing to Eris, which is pretty funny. That's some good music. And then they have some behind the scenes of how they're recording Eris. So that looks like something else interesting. And then they continue to go on all the behind the scenes with the 3D modeling and such. All primed up with everywhere to go. And so if you want to get the Prime Gaming loot bundle here, you got the emote, got the Sparrow, the ship, and the shader there for you. And you can subscribe to your favorite Twitch streamer, twitch.tv/like10p, right? Got Yeet the Smallin, player support report. Ignis Hammer and Javelin 4 return. So this week's Trials map and loot drop is going to be Ignis Hammer and Javelin 4 again, because last week was so buggy and that Bungie wasn't able to fix it in time, so they wanted to just do a redo basically. So that's pretty cool. And Crota's End Challenge Mode emblem. Let's see when they actually are going to give this out. We're working to ensure players who completed Crota's End Challenge Mode are properly credited for all one triumph. Additionally, updates we provided when available. So they haven't given anyone their emblems yet. We had to beat it 3 times. We had to beat Crota 3 times in Master just to get our emblem to drop. There's a list of known issues. Hoarfrost Z are using incorrect cooldowns. Interesting. And then we have the movie of the week. 2 movie of the weeks. Artist of the week. That looks pretty cool. Like that. And that's a wrap on this week's SWID. I'm definitely looking forward to that Thorn Catalyst. Trials is back on Javelin 4, so those of you that felt like you didn't have a good time in Trials with the bugged weapons, you get a second chance. You get a do-over. So have fun out there. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this. I'll keep you up to date on all the news in Destiny 2. Smash the like button. See you in the next one. Later.